Welcome to Mysteries and Crime, where we delve into humanity's darkest shadows. Tonight, we revisit a haunting tragedy from Liverpool, a tale so harrowing it gripped an entire nation. Here's your clue to watch for. What seemingly innocent item became a key to unlocking the truth? Let's begin. In February of 1993, 2-year-old James Bulger vanished from a shopping center in Bootle, near Liverpool. He was found murdered. 2 days later, the suspects, 2 10-year-old boys. The case shocked the world, not only because of the victim's age, but because of the perpetrators. What really happened? It began like any ordinary day. On February 12th, 1993, Denise Bulger took her toddler, James, to the New Strand shopping center. For a brief moment, she let go of his hand, and in that moment, everything changed. CCTV footage later revealed 2 boys, just 10 years old, lingering around the shops, observing children, seemingly looking for an opportunity. That opportunity came in the form of little James. 2 days later, on February 14th, James's body was discovered on a railway track in Walton, Liverpool. He had suffered horrific injuries, over 40 separate wounds, many too brutal to describe in detail. The scene was devastating. The railway line where his body was found was isolated, cold, littered with debris. It wasn't just a place of death. It was a deliberate stage of cruelty. Forensics revealed James had been beaten, stoned, and ultimately struck by a train, though many injuries occurred prior. The community reeled. Police launched a nationwide manhunt, initially believing the killers might be adults. But then, the CCTV footage surfaced. 2 young boys leading a toddler out of the mall, holding his hand, calm, almost casual, a chilling sight that would soon change the course of legal history. James Patrick Bulger was just 2 years old. Born on March 16th, 1990, he was described by family as a joyful, spirited toddler, full of curiosity, with a smile that could soften even the toughest heart. His mother, Denise, was devoted and attentive, often seen with James by her side around their Kirkby neighborhood. On that February day in 1993, James wore a gray jacket and blue trousers, typical for a toddler, yet heartbreaking in hindsight. He clutched a small bag of sweets, his treat for the day. That very bag would later become a chilling marker in CCTV footage. James was energetic, trusting, and, as so many toddlers are, innocent in a way that defies words. According to neighbors, he had just begun stringing together full sentences, a sign of his growing personality. His life was just beginning. Playdates, birthdays, bedtime stories, all stolen in a moment of senseless violence. What happened to James was not only tragic, it was deeply personal to an entire generation of parents. His case prompted waves of fear and sorrow, especially because of who the killers turned out to be. It raised chilling questions, questions no one had ever imagined needing to ask. Could children really kill? John Venables and Robert Thompson were both 10 years old at the time of James Bulger's murder. From the outside, they seemed like ordinary schoolboys. They came from troubled homes in the Liverpool area, homes where violence, neglect, and instability allegedly played a significant role. Robert Thompson was born the 5th of 7 brothers. His father left when Robert was 5, and according to social services reports, the household was chaotic, marked by absentee parenting and regular school absences. Teachers noted he was aggressive, prone to lying and manipulation. John Venables' background was different, but equally troubled. He reportedly exhibited emotional outbursts in school and had been seen self-harming. He came from a divided home with shifting guardianship between his parents. According to psychological evaluations, he struggled with impulse control and had shown early signs of distress and confusion. On the day of James's abduction, the two boys had skipped school, wandering around the shopping center, attempting to lure other children away from parents. Several witnesses reported seeing them try and fail before James. This suggests a level of intent, though the depth of their understanding remains debated. When police identified them through enhanced CCTV footage, the nation was stunned. Children, accused of such cruelty? The trial that followed would test the legal system's ability to comprehend the unfathomable, and the world watched in disbelief. February 12th, 1993. After taking James Bulger by the hand at the New Strand Shopping Center in Bootle, John Venables and Robert Thompson led the toddler out into the open street. The journey that followed stretched nearly 3 miles and lasted over 2 hours. Along the way, the boys were seen by nearly 40 individuals. Some witnesses later reported seeing James crying. Others saw what they believed was an older brother comforting a younger sibling. A few even questioned the boys, asking if James was okay. They allegedly told one passerby they were taking him to a police station, another that he was their brother, another still that he was lost. But James was not lost. He was being led to his death. The boys took him down side streets, across busy roads, and eventually to a remote railway line in Walton. Along the route, the abuse had already begun. According to forensic reports and later confessions, James was kicked, punched, and pushed over, suffering injuries even before they reached the tracks. Once there, the assault escalated. They struck James with bricks and stones, threw paint into his eyes, blue modeling paint reportedly stolen earlier from a shop. They stuffed batteries into his mouth and allegedly into other parts of his body. A heavy iron bar, part of the railway infrastructure, was used to inflict fatal blows. James suffered a total of 42 visible injuries. His skull fractured, his body bruised and bloodied. It was an attack marked by confusion and cruelty, carried out not by adults, but by children. Finally, in what has been interpreted by authorities as an attempt to disguise the crime, the boys laid James's body on the railway tracks. A train passed over him shortly afterward, causing injuries that initially made it difficult to determine whether the death had been an accident. But it was no accident. Forensics revealed that James was already deceased, or close to it, before the train's impact. The injuries from blunt force trauma and the paint traces on his face told a grim story. A blue footprint, later matched to one of the boys' shoes, was found on James's cheek. They left him there and walked away. No attempt to cover the body, no effort to flee the area. They returned home, as if nothing had happened. According to reports, John Venables was seen crying later that evening, while Robert Thompson allegedly showed no emotion. In those final horrific moments, a nation's innocence shattered, not just because of the violence, but because the perpetrators were children. What happened on those railway tracks would ripple through British society for decades. When James Bulger's body was discovered on February 14th, Police faced an agonizing challenge: find whoever had done this. And fast. Investigators combed the area for clues. The brutal nature of the crime initially suggested an adult offender, but as forensic evidence came in, and the CCTV footage from the shopping center was enhanced, suspicion shifted. The critical footage showed two boys, both appearing around 10 years old, calmly walking away with James. Officers released still images to the press. The nation watched, horrified. The boys' identities were confirmed within days when classmates recognized them. The decisive tip came on February 18th, when an anonymous caller identified John Venables. Shortly after, Robert Thompson was named. Both were arrested on February 20th. They reportedly confessed in separate interviews, though each blamed the other. Their stories shifted, but core facts emerged. The police had found their suspects, and the world was stunned. Forensics in 1993 faced significant limitations. There was no DNA database, and much of the evidence had to be interpreted through traditional investigative methods. Still, the scene gave up its secrets. Paint found on James's face matched the stolen blue modeling paint found in Robert Thompson's possession. The bricks, iron bar, and batteries all bore signs of use. A partial footprint on James's cheek matched John Venables' shoe, adding a chilling layer of confirmation. Despite the overwhelming evidence, questions lingered. Could 10-year-olds really comprehend what they were doing? Psychological assessments were ordered. Both boys were deemed fit to stand trial, though debates over mental capacity and criminal intent echoed in courtrooms and newspapers alike. In later years, modern forensic specialists would revisit the case, affirming the horrifying conclusion: this was no accident. It was a deliberate, targeted killing, committed by children. Liverpool grieved, then erupted. The murder of James Bulger by two 10-year-olds ignited a wave of fear and anger across the United Kingdom. Parents clutched their children a little tighter. Schools reported rising absences, and strangers were viewed with new suspicion. Vigils were held, candles burned in windows, flowers covered the train tracks where James was found. The community demanded answers and justice. Protesters gathered outside the courthouse where the boys were held, some reportedly calling for the return of the death penalty. Even as officials urged restraint, the public mood was clear. This crime had shattered something sacred. The media amplified every beat of the case. National newspapers ran front-page images of the CCTV footage, branding the suspects as evil and monsters. Television coverage saturated homes, transforming the tragedy into a national spectacle. The boys' names were made public, an unprecedented move for juvenile defendants. Commentators questioned the role of parenting, video games, societal decline. Some argued the media helped bring justice. Others claimed it inflamed tensions, perhaps even influenced the trial. But one thing was certain. For weeks, the faces of two 10-year-old boys haunted every screen in Britain, and James Bulger's name became immortal. In the days following the arrests, theories swirled in both law enforcement circles and the media. Why did they do it? Some experts pointed to psychological factors, including exposure to violence at home and in media. Others speculated about group dynamics, suggesting that neither boy would have committed the crime alone. Robert Thompson was described as the leader, more composed during interviews, more manipulative, according to investigators. John Venables, on the other hand, reportedly showed remorse, at one point asking if James had been taken to the hospital. There were rumors, never substantiated, of prior violent behavior, animal cruelty, and bullying at school. Teachers and social workers came under scrutiny. Could this have been prevented? According to court-appointed psychologists, both boys knew right from wrong. But why they chose this path remains clouded in speculation. Theories continue to haunt the case. But the truth may never be fully known. The trial began on November 1st, 1993, at Preston Crown Court. Because of the boys' age, the courtroom was specially modified. They were seated on raised chairs so they could see over the dock, dressed in formal clothes, referred to by their first names. Both pleaded not guilty, but the evidence was overwhelming. Forensic findings, witness accounts, the confessions, all pointed to one conclusion. On November 24th, 1993, both were found guilty of murder. The judge described the case as incomprehensible and sentenced them to be detained at Her Majesty's pleasure, a sentence without a fixed term. They became the youngest convicted murderers in modern British history. The verdict sparked national debate over how young is too young to be held fully accountable, and whether justice had truly been served. Decades have passed, but questions remain. Could someone have intervened that day? Could a passing stranger have stopped it? Were there signs at home, at school, that were missed? And perhaps the most haunting mystery of all, why James? After their release in 2001, under new identities, both Robert Thompson and John Venables vanished from public view. Venables, however, would later re-enter the justice system, raising concerns about rehabilitation and protection. Some details of the case remain sealed. Others are debated to this day. But one truth endures. James Bulger was failed by more than just his killers. The murder of James Bulger changed the UK forever. It sparked widespread debate about the age of criminal responsibility, which remains at 10 years old in England and Wales. Child psychology programs were overhauled, youth crime policies rewritten, and public discourse about juvenile justice deepened. The case influenced films, documentaries, and court reforms, and shaped an entire generation's sense of safety. For many, it was the moment childhood innocence died, and yet, it also sparked a demand for change, one still echoing across courtrooms and classrooms alike. What do you think happened that day? Could a different turn of events have changed everything? Tell us in the comments below. Clue reminder: what seemingly innocent item became a key to unlocking the truth? Thank you for joining us on Mysteries and Crime. As always, stay curious, stay vigilant, and stay safe.